Agresioni 24 shtatorit ndaj Kosovës i ngjanë shumë asaj që bëri Serbia në Kroaci dhe Bosnje, deklaron politologu boshnjak Jasmin Mujanoviq, derisa thotë se shanset për konflikt janë më të mëdha se 10 vjet më parë. Në intervistën për Kosova Press, shkencëtari politikës dhe doktori i filozofisë në Universitetin e New Yorkut thekson nevojën për sankcionim të Serbisë nga BE-ja, por se është pesimist pasi thotë se shtetet si Hungaria po pengojnë një gjë të tillë. Mujanoviq flet për dialogun të cilin e konsideron funksionalisht të vdekur, derisa konsideron se emisari Evropian Lajçak e ka humbur kredibilitetin.
I think the attack in Banjska was very clearly an operation by the Serbian security services. I think it was clearly a state-level attack, state-driven attack. In that sense, I'm in agreement with the U.S. ambassador here in Kosovo that the weapons that were used, the sophistication of the attack is such that it's impossible to think that this was just a group of armed militants. This clearly required very sophisticated political and logistical support, and so in that sense I think it bears more resemblance to what Serbia did in Croatia in 1991 and in Bosnia in 1992 rather than strictly a terrorist attack. Of course it was a terrorist attack, but I've been using the language of a paramilitary attack because I think that suggests and implies state-level support, which is clearly what happened here. I think these are state actors, little green men, if you will. If we want to use the language of Ukraine from 2014, we knew those were Russian troops. We also know that these were, functionally speaking, troops from the Serbian state.
Në situatën e krijuar pas sulmit terrorist ndaj policisë së Kosovës në Banjsk të Zveçanit, Mujanoviq flet për domosdoshmërinë për sankcionim të Serbisë.
I think Serbia should be sanctioned. Unfortunately, I don't think Serbia will be sanctioned. It's very clear that Hungary and a number of other countries in the European Union are blocking sanctions policies in that regard. It is possible, and I hope that we will see some kind of sanctions from the United States targeting elements within the Serbian security apparatus. We know there were sanctions recently against Aleksandar Vulin. I suggest that those should be expanded, but I do not think that we will see formal sanctions from the European Union. In the case of the European Union, unfortunately, I think we're still not dealing with a reality-based approach. In particular, when we're talking about individuals within the EU architecture, such as Oliver Varhelyi, who at this point I don't think is an enlargement commissioner for the Western Balkans. He is the enlargement commissioner for Serbia. Likewise, I think Mr. Lajçaku, unfortunately, is a deeply compromised figure and somebody who has lost credibility, who I don't think can credibly go on in this position anymore.
Derisa ndërkombëtarët po theksojnë nevojën për respektim të marrëveshjes së Ohrit, politologu boshnjak thekson se është Serbia ajo që nuk e ka përfillur asnjëherë atë.
I think unfortunately the dialogue as we have understood it to date is functionally dead. The Ohrid agreements and the Brussels agreements were never respected by Serbia to begin with, and now that we are dealing with a situation where Serbia is actively sponsoring violence and facilitating violence on the territory of the Republic of Kosovo, it's very difficult for me to see the process moving forward as it has been imagined to date. At some point, obviously, we do want to see the diplomatic process return and resume, but I think the priority for the government in Pristina right now needs to be ensuring that it controls all segments of its territory, that it is able to project law and order in all segments of Kosovo's territory, and that it is able to provide security and stability for all citizens of Kosovo.
Mujanoviq flet edhe për asociacionin e komunave me shumicë serbe, për shkak të se ndarja etnike nuk është në përputhje me konventin ndërkombëtare për të drejtat e njerëzit.
I think it's deeply problematic, speaking especially as a Bosnian, when we start mixing ethnicity and territory. I think that is not the right solution. That is not the right way to protect the interests of all citizens of Kosovo, regardless of whether they are Serb or Albanian, Boshnjak, Romani, whoever. We know, for instance, just from Bosnia, just in the last few weeks, we had a very important decision by the European Court of Human Rights, where the court in the Kovacevic decision said very clearly that the mixing of ethnicity and territory and ascribing political rights purely on the basis of ethnicity is not in line with the European Convention of Human Rights. And so I'm afraid that the ASM, as it has been presented to date, would also not be in keeping with the European Court of Human Rights. And I think more specifically, the onus is on some of the folks in the EU and the US to explain very specifically what rights is it that they imagine that the Serb community in Kosovo, and I guess specifically in the north of Kosovo, although obviously there are Serbs in other parts of Kosovo, what rights do they not have presently? And what rights need to be realized. And once we identify what those rights are that are missing, then perhaps we can all collectively identify a better modality for realizing those rights than this kind of very vulgar ethno-territorial Dayton-style division.
Pas agresionit serb ndaj Kosovës, Mujanoviq thotë se gjasat për konflikt janë më serioze se sa 10 vjet më parë.
I think unfortunately the prospects for conflict are more serious than they were, for instance, 10 years ago. The region as a whole is moving in the wrong direction. It's moving in the wrong direction. I think the prospects for the kind of violence that we saw during the 1990s, either in Kosovo or, for instance, Bosnia, I think that is still relatively limited. The odds are very low, but they are higher also than they were 10 years ago. So I think we need to be serious about the deteriorating security situation and not just kind of keep telling ourselves, oh, it can't happen, it won't happen. If we don't take it seriously, everything is possible.
Të dielën e 24 shtatorit, Serbia kreu agresion ndaj Kosovës në të cilën nga terroristët serb mbeti i vrarë polisi Jasmin Mujanoviq dhe u plagosën 2 të tjerë.